Have another old laptop, no vacuum tubes today, but I have this old vintage 2008 Alienware M15x R1 laptop. It's a pretty cool little laptop. You know, I hate to throw things away, and I picked this up around 2020, and I had bought some parts to refurbish it because there were a lot of things missing out of it. So I have it up and running, but I might even turn this into a spare daily driver. It's a shame that we have to throw out so much old technology when it works just fine. You know, laptops, computers, why do we need to buy new ones? Well, the operating systems, they get more complicated. They require more horsepower to run. And I can understand the gamers to play the newer games, they need a lot more horsepower. But this guy, actually, it'll play a lot of vintage games from way back up until the mid-teens here. Now, this is a 17-year-old laptop we're talking about, but I think it's pretty cool. As you look at the original advertisement of this thing, and I guess this is called the Ripley style. They had two style of cases on this thing. And it has pretty neat little lighting. It has the keyboard, which you can change colors. The trackpad, you can change the colors around that. The touch buttons, it has actually touch buttons on the top there where you can just, it's touch control. There's actually no push. And the lighting that it has, it's pretty cool. You can change all that and make it do all kind of things. But of course, you need a Windows program. And I want to talk about a little bit about the Linux and how I got it to work on there, especially with the video card that's in this. Now, this guy back in the day, again, it was an expensive laptop. So why throw these expensive things out? And for the same amount of money, of course, you can get a new one if you want to spend the money with much better hardware. Now, I added a SSD to this and found other odds and end parts, hard drive caddies and such, things that was missing, RAM. But as I have this configured now, the base price of this back in September 2008 was $14.99. That was the base price. But if you add all the extras, the Nvidia card that's in it is an 8700 GT. That was an extra $150. Now, I've figured I have my eye out now for an 8600. That was actually about $510 edition back then, but they're hard to find. So if I ever come across one for this Alienware laptop and it's reasonable, I may just add it to it and add it to my other vintage laptops, such as the old Alienware M7700 video that I did. And it was a pretty powerful desktop back in 2005, or rather desktop replacement, so we say, because it was so darn heavy. And the power brick weighed as much as a brick, because I think it was a 9 or 10 amp power brick for that. But this has the CPU in it that was the top of the line of the day. It was an Intel X9000 Extreme. And this was an extra $375 back in September 2008, and it was touted as the fastest processor at the time. Now, of course, at the time, 2009, of course, things changed. We've got faster processors, and you'll notice if you look back at the M15Xs, that the style was changed in 2009. I don't know whether that Dell had anything to do with this, because they acquired Alienware back in 2006, and maybe they had planned over the years to make the changes they did to the different laptops. 4 gigabyte of RAM this has. Now, that was a $200 edition. The Turbo Cache card, that was an addition. I think it was only like $15 at the time, but I had added that. And the SSD, if you got the SSD back then, 120 gigabyte SSD, that's actually what I have in there. It was one that I had laying around here. That was $225 edition. And the Smart Bay. Now, I actually bought the Smart Bay just to have it. The Smart Bay goes where the CD or DVD drive is, and it can actually they have a battery too that'll fit in that bay, but this contains a hard drive. So I bought that, all the parts, and actually forgetting what I had bought, I bought another extra bay. I think I'm just going to put it together, and I'll slap a hard drive in it, and I'll put it up on sale on eBay. Maybe somebody needs a drive with an extra drive bay, but that itself was extra $400 with a 500 gigabyte drive, which I have. And the effects keyboard with the lighting, that was an extra $50. So the whole thing come to $38.49 back in 2008, and that was quite a bit of money to spend. So you can see, the different shots of how the keyboard and the lighting looks on this guy, and it looks pretty neat. Everything lights up, and I think it's just cool. And actually, it's very handy in a dark room, or sitting outside in the evening. You want to do a little bit of work on the computer. It's starting to get dusk. You can actually see the keys. I think it was a good idea. Alienware had some groundbreaking ideas before Dell took them over. But I installed Windows 7. I have an old original 64-bit Alienware installed this for Windows 7. And I installed it on there. And by the way, as of this video, there are still all the updates available from Microsoft for Windows 7. Now you don't want to be online too much for that, but I'm going through my router so that I let it go ahead and install the updates. But the only updates you don't want to install if you do this for this type of laptop is there is an infrared sensor on the front of the laptop. I imagine they used that if you had the Media Center, edition with the remote control. But for some reason on this one, when that driver went in, it just turned off the trackpad. The Synaptics trackpad came up with a little message on the screen that it had been shut off because it recognized another mouse or controller driver on there. So I don't know. So I just disabled it in the hardware, and the trackpad came back on. But so I installed all that, and I have all the drivers, and I have the Alienware, all the, actually it was made by Window Blinds, the desktop. Here's a picture of what the Windows 7 desktop looks like now on this. And I actually have a bigger hard drive coming because I'm going to partition this out, and I've got a Linux to run on it with the Nvidia card, which is nice. Now the newer kernels, 6, I think above 5.4, maybe, I'm not sure, the kernels on Linux, they took all the support out for this particular driver, which is the Nvidia 340 driver, so you can't use it. But I tried a bunch of different Linuxes, and Linux, and a lot of them are the same. Once you use one, install others, and I've been playing around with Linux for a long time, off and on. Of course, if you look at my video where I got ticked off at Microsoft, I did have 11 on my desktop, which is vintage too. It has an old, I have an old AMD A10 7890K CPU in it with a Radeon, I think it's a RX 560 video card in it, and it runs fine. And I tried a couple games on that, and it runs pretty darn good. But anyway, getting back to that, the Linux that I found that worked really well was Bodhi Linux. And I put their version, 64-bit version, that has the 5.0 kernel in it, and I think when I put it in, I did an update and installed up to the 5.4, but it works fine. As long as you stick with that version of the kernel, you can actually use the Nvidia drivers on it. And as you go to their website, they have, and there's an instruction page on actually installing that driver. It's pretty easy, opening up a terminal and typing in some terminal commands to install the driver. And then you have to disable the Nouveau driver that is put in by X. And I did notice that this laptop must have had a little bit of problem with that Nouveau driver, because off and on after I installed the boat, I would have some crazy things happening on the screen until I got that driver installed for the Nvidia and rebooted, and then everything was fine. It works fine. You have the Nvidia control panel. So that's the way to go. And you know, it's a Linux that can do just about everything that Windows can do, if you're happy with it. And you can do, you know, surf the net and anything else you want, because you really don't want to do that in Windows 7. I'm sure you're aware, because it's old, it's unsecure. But you can use Windows 7 for old software that you have, Windows. I have a lot of that, even if you want to run some games and things that were designed for back then. And you can do the same thing with the Linux. You could install some newer games. You could install DOSBox on there, or in Windows 7 too, DOSBox. I think Windows 7 will even take the virtual machine, virtual box. I think version 6 point something or other. You'd have to check on their website. This is the last one that actually works with Windows 7, if you decided to do that. But with Linux, you can be your daily driver. As I switched to my desktop, I use Mint on it now. I have Mint 24 running on that A10 processor, and hey, it runs snappy. It's quick. It's fine. Everything works. I threw a couple games in from Steam just to see and what I have, and they're running pretty good on that old CPU. So don't discount these old PCs, because don't throw them away if you don't have to. I mean, for the average home user, and I have friends that I've repaired their laptops at times for, and their computers, and they don't do anything other than browsing, their banking maybe, and you know, listen to music, and they don't do anything really demanding. It's not needed for the home users. It's really not. So you could take an old laptop like this, and my goodness, it could run for years and years and years. I think this Bodhi Linux, it's a long term, and it's good. I think it's got security updates till, I think, 2032. So how long am I going to last? So that'll make a good, I guess, second laptop for me. I might keep that one. Actually, I just sold a old Dell that I had fixed up with XP and Puppy Linux on it, and some person was happy with it. They wanted it to play old, really retro games on it. But as I said, I'll put a link in the description for the set of drivers for this, and also there's a file in there that tells you the order that's the best order to install the drivers that someone had came up with. It's off the old Alienware site, and they made a copy of the web page, which is nice. And so other than that, hey, if you have any questions, and you know, feel free. And if you happen to have an old Alienware 8600M video card laying around, Nvidia, I might be interested, if it's reasonable, just to stick it in here. So other than that, have any questions, you know, have a good day, and God bless.